Hey everyone, welcome back to Yoko Wood. In this video, I'm going to show you how I created this Murphy bed out of walnut ply, poplar, some more ply, painted, walnut. Here it goes.
First thing I wanted to do before I started this project was take a quick look at the instructions and unpack, take a look at everything, and then I get into one of the other first steps, which is cutting out the template for the side rails. Within the instructions, Create a Bed does supply a template so that you can cut it out, easily put it onto the template material, and then cut it out with a jigsaw. Now I did keep the jigsaw away from the line a bit, used my orbital sander then to refine the shape and bring it down to the size wanted. And now that I've got the template made, it's time to transfer that template onto the walnut veneer plywood. And then after transferring the mark of the template, I will cut out with a jigsaw. I do this twice based on the left and the right side rails. Again, I get close without getting too close to the line, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that template and I'm going to use my router to recreate that exact shape on the finished walnut veneer plywood. So as you can see, I've got another roll of walnut veneer, and you might be asking, well, why do you need walnut veneer when you've already got the walnut veneer plywood? And the reason is based on the economics of the project. I did buy one sheet of already veneered walnut plywood, which is veneered on both sides, which I did need for the upcoming side panels that I'll be showing. But the rest of the project only really needed one side of walnut veneered plywood. So I did use some of the double-sided for areas that I only needed one side. But then when I ran out of that double-sided veneered plywood, I used my own veneer and sort of made it myself based on only needing one side. I also thought I'd be resourceful and use the walnut veneer for some edge banding as well. This was probably a mistake. I probably wouldn't do it again. It turned out fine, but using edge banding, iron-on edge banding in particular, is much easier, quicker, and it just goes on a lot better. I've really made some parts of this project harder than it needed to be based on sort of my interpretation of being cheap, and this was one of them. I used the veneer for the edge banding. I don't know if anybody really does that. It worked out fine. It looks good. So overall, I'm pleased with it. It was more work than just having edge banding already to a 3/4 inch size. So now I'm going to jump over to the inner frame construction. And this is sort of the main frame portion of the bed, and it attaches to the front panel that swings up and down. And this is made out of poplar. And this is my go-to species when it comes to anything that is going to be used, in this case, for a frame or something that's going to get painted, because it's really clear. It doesn't have any knots for the most part. The grain is really straight. And then here I'm taking the poplar pieces and making rails that I will attach to the frame here in a minute. And it's sort of funny because when I first started woodworking, I only really thought of the hardwoods as something like walnut, oak, maple, something that you could enhance the grain. But there really is a place for everything based on this poplar. It's good for things like this, an internal frame, and it's really great for painting. Each of what I'm calling rails that I'm inserting here are sort of an L shape, and that's based on being able to later drill holes through the bases of these L's and then attaching it to the face panel. So now we come to the face panel, and the first thing I wanted to do was join these two pieces of 31-inch wide plywood to create the total width of 62 inches. And I did this by marking out the locations and drilling domino holes. After drilling all the holes, it's time for glue and the dominoes themselves. Not sure if the domino is still a controversial tool, but I really don't care. It's one of my favorite tools. It makes joinery so much easier. Now I know I sped it up, but you can see how quickly that went together. And then really all you have to do is put some clamps on it, hold it for a few hours, and it's golden. Now that I've got the two panels joined as one, it's time to use my amazing vintage travel iron to start applying the edge banding. This is iron on edge banding, obviously. This is the preferred way that I like to do it, and it works out really well. It's easy. The only thing is, if you don't get everything evenly contacted with the heat, it can sometimes bubble up, but it's not really that big of a deal because you can just go right back over it with the heat and press it back down. So it makes it really nice for sort of spot treatments after the fact. I used birch edge banding, and this is pretty much what I use anytime something is going to be painted. After those panels are joined, edge banded, and sanded down to a finished product, I then take some strips of poplar that I've cut to 3¼ inches, and in this case, that's going to represent the rails and stiles of the front panel. These pieces will help to provide sort of a simulated look of a closet or wardrobe. Once I've got one side clamped down, it's time to start on the other side, and this project did just about take all of my F-style and quick grip clamps. And I actually eventually had to start stealing from one side to the other. And really, I mean, I probably did overkill on the amount of clamps on this one side, so it worked out anyway. And then once I nail it, everything basically is sort of set. Additionally, I don't show it in this video, but I do go over all of the nail holes and fill it with a Bondo material. I got all sorts of different wood fillers, from the kind that you just wipe on and then eventually when it dries it sort of just wipes off. That doesn't seem to really fill the hole that great and never comes out with great results. But using the wood filler by Bondo, it always seems to really harden up nice and gives a smooth finish. Once I've got all the rail stiles glued, nailed, and filled, It's then time to start spraying some primer. Step, I've actually opted to utilize the Microclimate Air 3 that was provided to me by Microclimate. It's a wearable helmet that circulates air with fans through filters. It's marketed to be the next generation of air filters, sort of to take the place of a 3M mask. And I will say it's much more comfortable. I'll have my thoughts on this futuristic looking piece of equipment in a later video. This is the construction of what I'm calling the header that joins the two side panels together while also creating a nailer or an area to screw into the wall and anchor spot. Before I put any finish on the side rails or the side panels of the Murphy bed, I want to make sure that all the hardware holes and areas that it needs hardware are in the precise locations. I want to do this before I put finish on the product, only because I'm moving it around. I don't want to scratch anything once I do ultimately put the finish on. And I will say again, the Create a Bed instructions were great. They helped me so much, and they also have QR codes that I actually utilized more than I thought I would. Since I'm much more of a visual person, there are videos, just 2-3 minute videos for each step that you can watch, and I referred to those quite a bit. Once the rails were done with hardware prep, I was able to start on the side panels. This meant that I could break out the old trusty Festool router, and I really don't use this thing as much as I used to, based on having a router table just makes things so much easier. But in situations or applications like this where you can't really use a router table, it comes in handy. The last step for the side panels is to apply this veneer or cap on the front of the side panels so that it builds it out to be exactly flush with the front panel. Again, I used a lot of clamps on this piece, and I could definitely use more clamps. So if you have clamps you want to give me, please reach out. Other than the header, which ties together the side panels, the other piece that ties it together is the headboard. And what I wanted to do for the headboard is give it the same sort of look that the front panel has, which is a style and rail profile. A light chamfer on all of the edges of the poplar that I'm using here. I did this on the entire inner and outer perimeter of the poplar pieces that I'm attaching to the plywood here, but I also did it at any perceived joint. So if there's a rail and a style that meet, there is a slight chamfer on both of them when they meet to create sort of a nice little transition or a shadow line. Another thing to note is that since this is the headboard and it's going to be against the wall, you will not see the back of it, obviously. So in contrast to the front panel where I nailed the rails and stiles on from the front, since this isn't going to be seen on the back, I could nail everything from the back. Once I got the entire headboard assembled, I could start the priming process. And again, spraying with my futuristic looking helmet. And after the primer's dry, I didn't show it here, but I did put a few coats on, and in between coats I gave it a light sanding to make sure that everything was smooth before the final coat. I used a color here called Navajo White, and it is just a slight awfully light to cream color. We landed on this color based on the contrast that it would give against the walnut veneered panels. And here we go with the finishing of all of the walnut veneered pieces. I used my Graco Pro 2 sprayer. It's always money when it comes to laying down nice even coats, and it just comes out looking so professional. It's time to actually install the hardware supplied by Creative Bed. And this is really a breeze based on me already drilling and marking out the holes that I needed before I finished. And unbeknownst to me, at this time, I was actually putting in that piece right there in the incorrect spot. And what I did was, I do this all the time. I measure something, mark it, measure it again, look at it, it looks right, and I was exactly an inch off with this piece. And even worse, it wasn't off an inch on both of them, it was only one of them, so then that translated to problems down the road. I didn't record it, but basically the gist of it is that I installed the entire face panel, put the rails up, and had it installed, and one side of the face panel protruded or was proud of the side panels by 1 inch. So I actually measured one of these and drilled, installed the hardware 1 inch off, and it created a lot of problems, but I was able to remedy it pretty quickly. And you know, as I say later in this video, one of the best aspects or attributes of a good woodworker isn't necessarily always what they're using, the species that they're using, or the way that they're doing it, but it is the ability to cover up any mistakes, because inevitably there's always going to be something, and how you deal with and remedy that mistake is the difference between someone that is experienced and someone that's just starting out. So now that I've sprayed all of the walnut veneered pieces, I'm able to attach the rails to the frame itself. And this is where it got a bit tricky, trying to hold the rails and clamp them at the same time, but eventually, after a couple tries, I did get it in the exact right spot. I needed those pieces there on the corner to be flush before I screwed them together. So the day has come, the final installation. Now, as I alluded to earlier, this wasn't actually the final installation because I did make a mistake that sort of hindered me and held me back a bit, but I was able to correct that. And in this step, I was using a pencil to trace the frame onto the front panel. I was then able to pick up the panel itself to reveal the pencil marks and where the actual frame sits on the front panel. After that, I was able to glue it, put the frame down, and start to screw in where the frame sits on the panel. After the frame was fully attached to the front panel, I was able to bring in both side panels to attach to the actual frame itself. The hardware makes it really nice to create that pivot point with a male and female piece that joins together with a retaining clip. And then here, as you can see, one of the inspectors came, took a couple sniffs, and left. So by that time, it was time to install the headboard. And this is a major structural piece of the project based on the fact that it ties together with the header the two side panel pieces. And once we've got the headboard on, it's time to pivot up the sides, keep the front panel on the floor. You can't really see here, but we're sort of pivoting those side panels up along with the headboard to rest against the wall vertically. With an adjustment of the camera, we can now see that the side panels are vertically against the wall. And now, with the addition of the support of the headboard, we're going to attach the header. It's particularly tricky even with two people, because once you get one clamp on, you start to move the other side, the clamp starts to slide, so forth. So it was a kind of back and forth to get the header exactly right, but eventually I was able to get it on there flush and attached. And right after this was done filming, this is the point where I figured out my mistake with the panel being proud on one side by 1 inch. So I actually had to take it back down, uninstall the header, uninstall one side of the headboard, and fix it. One major piece of additional information that I did not supply here and I did not film were the installation of the pistons themselves on the side rails. And there really isn't anything to it other than just snapping it in place. Then following the create a bed instructions to preset all of the hardware based on the size of mattress that you've been utilizing.
So that's it. Before I hit the hay, I want to let you know that Create a Bed did supply me with this hardware. The instructions did a really great job of laying out exactly what I needed to do. I did make a few mistakes along the way, as I always do, but a good woodworker always knows how to cover them up. So, oh, I forgot. Put some lights in too, just for some light reading before nap time. Well, anyway, I'm getting ready for bed. See ya.